What's good, friends? List episode 80 of the Gamecast coming at you. The new year's finally upon us, and as we finally close the book on the bottomless pit of negativity that was 2020, we now turn our attention to 2021, specifically what Microsoft has in store for us. So, this week, we examine what many are calling the Xbox Series X's true launch year, 2021, and what the Green brand is bringing to the table for its stable of fans. What exclusives that aren't dated do we think might sneak in? Will the lineup help set a better course for exclusive content on Xbox? Do we begin to see the future of Bethesda and Microsoft take shape with new looks at upcoming games on their end? We try and map it all out for you. Plus, a new survey from Microsoft wants your feedback on the new Xbox controller and are even asking if more features akin to the PS5's DualSense controller should be implemented. Should concerns regarding the controller be a major sticking point right now for Microsoft? Also, while Xbox has had a long and prosperous life since its launch almost 20 years ago now, things weren't as concrete heading towards its initial launch, which even included acquisition conversations with Nintendo that weren't very positive, to say the least. But was it the right move all along? All of this and much more on the newest jam-packed episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Budget.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So, be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz that I tell you every week, wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. As always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travelis on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, my partner in crime, Mike P-Pack. Mike, what's good, what's going on, and how rewarding is it to double pack a punch a fucking knife in fucking zombies in Cold War?
It's been great, man. I finally have gotten some fresh games in my system, and it's very nice to just play something fresh because it's been very stagnant for a long time as far as what I've personally have been playing. So it is really nice to get something fresh in there. But like you said, you know, when you get that second pack or when you get that double pack punch on that knife and you're just slicing dicing your way through mobs, it's pretty nice. It does get pretty risky, but yeah, it's part of the fun.
Well, yeah, you got to risk it to get the biscuit, you know?
That's right.
No, it's been really fun playing that. Like, and I am very much on record being like a pretty, I don't want to say anti-Call of Duty person. I've just never really, if I'm going to play a shooter, there's always been 50 other ones I'd probably would rather want to play ahead of Call of Duty, but there still is a very big appeal to it, specifically the zombie mode, because once again, it's one of those modes that we always kind of talk about and ways to bring people in that, hey, I don't really play shooters too often. Cool, you can still play with us. Like that's you know, it's not a, you know, ranked competitive, you know, playlist or anything like that. Like, it's just getting together a group of, you know, your buddies and seeing how long you can last. It's stuff like that that I continue to hope for more of, compared to, like, as somebody, you know, both of us being people who love esports, you know, I think that there's so much room for both of those entities to exist, not just, you know, esports, competitive gaming and whatnot, but also the PvE scene, the you know, modes that you can get in from a multiplayer standpoint that are more accessible to everyone. That I want to see both of those grow, you know, at a similar clip and, you know, same way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But it's been it's just been so refreshing to have yet another, you know, like we were joking about today with our, you know, group of friends. It's Star Wars Battlefront 2 is going to be the Celebration Edition, which is the best version of the game to get, and it is a great version, is going to be free on Epic Games Store next week starting. And I told everyone, hey, make sure everyone picks this up. This is a great game that we could all jump into and, all of us play and have something to play with. And I made the thing, it's just another shell, or, it's just another bullet in the chamber, another bullet in the magazine. And you being Mike, you being the one saying, well, our magazine's fucking like 1 billion clips long at this point. Like,
yeah, we have a lot of options, but also, again, I've been someone who has complained pretty openly about the fact that I don't have anything new to play. So it's definitely a good problem to have.
Yeah, no, definitely. Outside of that, what else you been playing?
Yeah, I mean, I've still been playing quite a bit of Phasmophobia, basically getting my money's worth out of the early access version of the game, which it has been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's been some buggy stuff, but overall, it's really enjoyable.
Nothing ever really like game breaking for the most part.
Yeah, once you get. When you're playing with a party, if someone like drops, it can glitch the cams, which is kind of frustrating because then you just kind of have to guess if it's ghost orbs if you can't see what you're looking at. But by and large, the game has been really rewarding. It's been very enjoyable. It's something that I would still recommend people to pick up if they're into that type of thing, and if you're not, that's okay too. But the co-op nature of it is a lot of fun, and for something that's early release yet. It shows a lot of promise to me. It's definitely something that once you become more experienced in the ghost hunting, like the smaller maps are going to become less enjoyable, or maybe not less enjoyable, but less challenging with a party. So sometimes, people that have played the game a lot usually will play by themselves when they have a high enough level. But maps like Asylum and Prison, as you learned yesterday, are so big. Sometimes it's just simply not feasible to do those maps solo. I mean, it is, but it's just going to take a really long time.
Yeah.
So overall, I mean, I still am really digging the game. It's been a ton of fun. So I've been playing that, and then also I've been mixing in some Halo Cartographer or Project Cartographer, which is a Halo 2 Vista mod build basically, and it's not like completely modded, so it's completely different from the original Halo 2, but it has a lot of house cleaning updates and adaptability compatibility is the word I'm looking for. Compatibility updates that make the game playable for a lot more people, and it's a free online download at halo2online. I think it's .com or .net, one of the two. But I've been playing a lot of that, I've been getting back into that a little bit, so it's been a lot of fun getting back into that. Just Halo 3 is kind of in a stagnant place where it's still in a very good spot as far as like update and game and everything, but without tournaments or anything to be playing in, the player base is kind of, fell off again for the most part because people are either playing H5 or a lot of the players have moved on to Call of Duty. So just kind of, mixing in some Halo 2 and into my diet also. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, like I guess I'm not as close to that echo chamber as you are to see the minute details that may be wrong with Halo 3 at the time on MCC or anything like that, but to me it's just great to once again seeing the game at least in a good state where it's being pushed, it's being presented, and at the end of the day, like if you would have asked me in 2016-17 that this many people would be still excited about MCC across the board, I would have laughed. Like that MCC would have seen this resurgence in general, a recommitment from 343, because that is very much not something you traditionally see in gaming, where it isn't where more so it's, usually you will see, hey, this game launched poorly, that's okay, we're still, hey, it's a month after, what, we gotta fix this, let's buckle down, reintroduce it, but rarely do we see something that came out in 2014 and then 4 years later, 3-4 years later, be basically, hey, we're gonna recommit to this, we believe in this, we're gonna buckle down and provide a product that, we want everybody in on. So, just in general, it's been just so rewarding to watch as a Halo fan, just even as somebody who is more so just a fan of the series than, who competes or anything like that. It's still awesome to see. And, hopefully, knock on wood, that's a good inclination to a long-term commitment with Infinite, not just, hey, say it comes out and, shit's bad right at the start. Cool. We at least know, okay, we've seen them go back and commit to MCC. Hopefully they're willing to commit to this game right off the bat type of thing. So, on my end, in terms of stuff I've been playing, kind of a little bit of everything. Phasmo with you, obviously. I haven't been playing that much Fortnite or anything like that, but dipping my toe into some CSGO as always. But it's mostly been now stuff that I want to go back and play. I'm looking at those kind of blind spots since right now we're kind of in that lull, that post-holiday lull of, hey, there's nothing, even though that seems to get smaller and smaller each year that goes by because things are releasing 24/7, but there's not as many big titles that are coming right off the bat right now. So there's a little bit of time that, hey, we can jump in and try different things or whatnot. And one of the things was I wanted to go back and play through the original Mass Effect trilogy. Well, I've only ever played through and finished the first one, never finished Mass Effect 2 or 3, never even played 3 because I didn't finish 2. I didn't really see a point at that point, but wanted to go back and do that. I finished the first one over the holiday break and can't say enough good things about the world that BioWare built back then, in 2007, that really holds strong, at least narratively, and there's a lot of rough edges around it. Granted, I played on PC and put some mods in there that helped out a lot, but, there are a lot of rough edges around that game, visually, and, with some of the animation and dialogue and whatnot and voice acting, but overall, the writing itself is still absolutely, BioWare at that point, coming off of, Knights of the Old Republic and, taking what they had at that point and going into, hey, we're going to have our own Space Odyssey. We're going to have our own version of, this narratively driven, choice-based RPG. It's still just like, I find it hard to look at that time period, even now, in some regards, of, putting that period of BioWare's history up against really any of the main staple RPGs, developers like Obsidian and Bethesda and, and so on and so on, and looking at it and saying, they may be untouchable type of thing. Obviously now's a different story, but yeah, I'm eventually going to work my way back into Mass Effect 2, which I am very excited to do because that is, from what I hear, hands down the best one. I only played a little of it back in the day whenever it first released, so I vaguely remember any of it, so I'm really excited to go back and do that. And then the other one game that I did start and I'd like to finish, one of the kind of blind spots that I really want to kind of focus in on, because I think they're going to be such an integral part of Microsoft and Xbox's, lineup of games really moving forward this generation, because we've seen how committed they are already, on top of not only having this rabid fan base of, people who support this franchise, but Yakuza. I want to go back and actually start playing because that's been such a blind spot. And granted, there's a little bit of a cultural curve that you got to, go in with these games because they are, they're subbed, subtitles for it, but there's no, as far as I know, there's no English voice acting for these games. So, it's almost like how you heard people talk about, well, it took a second for when I first watched Parasite, to get used to the subtitles, but as soon as you're in, boom, you're good. But that's a franchise that a lot of people have recommended to me, saying hey, you're really going to like this. And obviously hosting an Xbox show, or at least Xbox-centric, PC-centric show, and those games being so integral now on those platforms, given Yakuza Like a Dragon is an exclusive on console for Xbox right now, at least. It's something I want to get in and try, and and I started out, so far so good. I've only played about an hour of Kiwami, but I really do want to get in there. They're all on Game Pass on PC. Go in there, check it out, and on console too. But with Yakuza kind of being a big staple with Xbox, it's kind of and I'm going to bring it back to this towards the end of the show, but kind of one of those gaming goals that I have this year. That's hey, I want to try to play through some of these this year to really, acclimate myself to the franchise, I guess, and get a little more, familiar with it. But Mike, let's end the button mash for this week. If you're new to the show, that's where we go through our quick hit stuff before we head into our big topics for this week. So let's round up the news in the world of video games this week, starting with Wasteland 3 developer in exile appears to be working on an FPS RPG, according to a new job listing. Spotted by Twisted Voxel, the studio's open positions, such as lead gameplay engineer, mentioned that applicants will be working on In Exile's, quote, next-generation action role-playing game, implementing, quote, new first-person shooter gameplay features. The senior gameplay designer position talks about the creation of, quote, powerful tactical first-person weapons and unique combat abilities that draw the player right into the middle of the action, all but confirming that In Exile's project will be a first-person shooter RPG, similar to the likes of Cyberpunk 2077 or Deus Ex. Duracell's UK marketing manager, Luke Anderson, implied in an interview with Stealth Optical this week that Xbox's decision to stick with replaceable batteries was due to a long-standing agreement between the two companies, and claimed the partnership would continue, quote, for quite a while. And they're talking about batteries within their controllers, because a ton of people were fucking shocked that they were still going that route, including myself. Quote, there's always been this partnership with Duracell and Xbox. It's a constant agreement that Duracell and Microsoft have in place. He added, quote, the deal is for OEM to supply the battery product for the Xbox consoles and also controllers batteries. So that deal is going to be there for a while. It's been going on for a while, and I think it needs to go on for a while more. Any theoretical deal ensuring that Xbox controllers use AA batteries would now have run for at least 15 years. In a statement provided to MCV, a Microsoft representative noted that Xbox users have several options for charging their controller, but would not discuss the nature of its deal with Duracell. Quote, we intentionally offer consumers choice in their battery solutions for our standard wireless controllers, a Microsoft spokesperson said. CD Projekt Red representative has deviated from company policy to say that the widely circulated rumors about development decisions on Cyberpunk 2077 from a purported developer are, quote, simply not true. Posted on GameFAQs, a forum post claiming to include comments from a disgruntled developer made multiple claims about cut content, code rewrites, pressure from company executives, and the game's ongoing fixes, even adding the unexpected detail that the company's original Johnny Silverhand was inspired by David Hayter's Solid Snake and Cillian Murphy. Responding to the thread on the CD Projekt Red forums, CDPR employee Vader explained, quote, we usually do not comment on rumors, but this is simply not true, end quote. A tabletop version of Slay the Spire has been revealed, with a Kickstarter campaign set to launch in spring 2021. You can see a concept picture of the game's box on the Contention Games website, who will be adapting the hit indie game for physical play. Megacrit, which develops Slay the Spire, will seemingly be working with Contention Games on the board game. The website description says that the game will, quote, be a, quote, cooperative deck building adventure. Craft a unique deck, encounter bizarre creatures, discover relics of immense power, and finally become strong enough to slay the spire. Epic Games has bought an entire mall with plans to turn the unused location into its new headquarters in Cary, North Carolina. In a press release, Epic Games announced that it has purchased a 980,000 square foot and 87-acre Cary Town Center Mall, which will become the new Epic Games campus by 2024. This includes plans to create both office buildings and recreational spaces for long-term use. Development on the new HQ will begin later this year, and in the meantime, Epic Games will remain at its current Crossroads Boulevard location in Cary, the city Epic Games has been based for over 20 years. And finally, Nier Automata's, quote, final secret has been discovered after nearly 4 years, and it allows you to skip the entire game. As reported by Kotaku, modder and data miner Lance McDonald discovered this cheat code will allow players to go straight to the end of Nier Automata after only defeating its first boss. So, Mike, after all that, before we get into our big stuff for this week, anything you want to run back and go over?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely look at the news about In Exile Entertainment working on an FPS RPG potentially, and it's something that's really exciting to me because they only FPS RPGs I can really think of, that have been true RPGs is the Fallout series.
Hmm.
Basically, is what comes to mind. Obviously, probably for everybody. And I think that while the Fallout series has done a lot of great things, and obviously widely acclaimed as, basically enjoyed by most, if not all, people that enjoy FPSs in general. They have obviously fallen short of expectations the past few. I mean, not the past few games, but at least with Fallout 4, and then Fallout
Hmm.
76 obviously came up a little short of what people were expecting. So I think with the new generation that is coming out, with what we saw happen with Cyberpunk 2077 shooting for the immediate release on the new systems, I think that designing an FPS RPG at this point in time is great because it's going to give you time to get the technology in your hands, get the hardware figured out, see what you're going to be working with here, and that's kind of what makes me so excited. Is it's not going to be like a console release, like that's just asking for issues.
Hmm.
And that's really cool to me because with Deus Ex and Cyberpunk 2077, both those games are obviously awesome. But I think a game by NXL Entertainment, most of those games are futuristic. Deus Ex,
Hmm.
pretty fantasy based. Obviously, Cyberpunk 2077 and Fallout, all futuristic fantasy based. I'd be curious to see what direction they go with this because it feels like now would be a reasonable time to make something that's maybe not so far-fetched in fantasy settings. Obviously,
Hmm.
there's going to be fantasy elements to the game. There always has to be when it comes to RPGs, but I'd like to see something maybe a little bit more current day developed. So we'll see what they're working on, but that's exciting. It'll be the first like true next gen game to me because I don't count Cyberpunk 2077 as a next gen game currently
Hmm.
because of all the bugs and the fact that it just feels like it missed on a lot of different things.
Hmm.
And also, alternatively, Epic Game, like CD Projekt Red, the story with them is huge, but I want to just bring up the Epic Games buying an entire mall. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of these malls that are abandoned that coming in the future. Malls are going to be a thing of the past. It's just the way it is with the economy.
Hmm.
And while there's going to be malls in certain locations that might have higher income families living,
Hmm.
all these little like malls, kind of like the one near us, Westmoreland Mall or whatever, like all those little malls are going to wind up either going away or repurposing.
Hmm.
And with a lot of people working from home with COVID, some of the discussion I've been having with people is like, what are they going to do with the skyscrapers in downtown buildings? Like, it doesn't feel necessary for a lot of these people to be traveling downtown all the time. Like, there's no reason for it. The traffic, like, forget all that stuff. This might be a direction you see some companies going. Like with Epic, obviously, it's going to be great to have an entire mall
Hmm.
because you're going to be able to do a lot of different stuff with it. But let's like say someone like, I don't know, around us, UPMC is huge. Let's say like they just go out and buy Century 3 Mall and
Hmm.
repurpose that as their office building. And instead of going straight up in the air, now you have a mall that's a little bit further outside of the downtown area. So you don't have to deal with as much traffic, but you also have a much bigger area that you can kind of do stuff with. Like
Hmm.
this is something that maybe commercial real estate goes to in the future. And for a game development studio to be going this direction, obviously they're successful. We all know that. But I think it really is a testament to just how successful they actually are,
Hmm.
which is rather amazing to me. And I'm happy for them, even though I might not be loving like the game that they are most known for making.
Hmm.
Like I still am happy for them that they are so successful because at the end of the day, they made one of my all-time favorites in Gears of War, so I can't be mad at them. Like they're it's what they're making, what they're working on right now, and good for them. It seems like obviously everything's going great for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm in the same camp. Like I do agree, like I'm still in the mindset of like still kind of soured about the whole like Apple thing, like I'm not disagreeing with the, mentality behind how they're approaching that, but which we've talked about in a previous episode, but we've both kind of agreed that it's like it's 1 billion, it's 1 billion dollar company fighting another, tens of billions dollar company. Like
Hmm.
there's no, it's like it's just two people throwing money at each other. And like that always kind of turned me off. They're not like Epic isn't some just like underdog hero type of thing. No, that's not the case. They're one of the biggest players in video games right now. Not to mention their funding from Tencent and everything like that. So But I totally agree. Like Gears is still one of my favorite console franchises. Obviously on Xbox, but you know, I'll never knock them for, you know, like I said, there's times where I get into Fortnite. There's times where I'm not into Fortnite. And overall, I've not been into Fortnite, but lately I've been playing it and I have enjoyed it in the past. Like, and just because I don't like it doesn't mean that it's a fundamentally bad game or anything like that. Like, so all the success that they've gotten is well earned in my opinion. So like, I'm never gonna knock that.
Yeah.
Outside of that, the only other thing that I've kind of been, or out of all these articles that we kind of went over, obviously, the you know, rumor, I guess you want to say rumor, quote unquote, right now because it's not official, they haven't come out and said it, but surrounding In Exile in their next game. One, we already know it's an Unreal 5 engine game. As they already mentioned before, the whenever right after that, I think right after the demo for Unreal 5 was released, they kind of mentioned like, yeah, our next game, we've been in contact with Epic, we're doing Unreal, you know, our next game's going to be on Unreal 5. So I'm curious to see how that kind of, kind of moseys out and see what that really becomes once it's, you know, finally starts to kind of get formed around and whatnot. But yeah, I'm really excited for that. Like I said before, Cyberpunk, it's been kind of hit or miss for me, but I'm always for new RPG experiences across the board. Like, we kind of heard a lot of people say, well, everything is an RPG now, with how a lot of modern AAA games are made, where everything has RPG elements, like every game possible. Well, you know what? As games get bigger and bigger and the budgets gets bigger, and while there are more games that come out and there's more ways that people can, or there's more experiences that people can gravitate to outside the one they're already playing, you got to have ways to keep people coming back and having, you know, newer elements like that, like that, you know, cause replayability or want me to stay in that world and, you know, create my character exactly how I want to be, this living, breathing representation of what I would be in that world. So I'm all for RPG elements and like basically everything for the most part. So I'm totally cool with that. But Mike, let's head into the
Before
go
before
ahead.
we go into the news,
Let's-
I don't want to like obviously I don't want to spend too long, but I will say like the news you like the comment you bring up about RPG elements basically creeping into every single game.
Mhm,
You know, there was a time where when I went to pick up my Skyrim Legendary Edition on release night, like
mhm,
there was a lot of talk with a couple of the guys that were in line at GameStop that I saw where we were discussing, or like there was talks that like this could be the last RPG game because games like Call of Duty and Gears of War and Halo were just so popular that there was like legitimate talks, and it wasn't even that crazy to think like like the RPG genre as we knew it was dead. Like the games that, you know, we all loved and whatever, like those are going to be things of the past and we just need to get used to it. And like I still think obviously I still thought then and I still think now that there's a place for RPGs clearly, but you know, there was a time whenever like all of those games were so popular, like you know, they still remain popular, but they were what everyone was playing and not a lot of people were playing RPGs. So it wasn't that outlandish to actually think about that, which is crazy to think now when we see how big of a budget um Cyberpunk had for release and everything of that nature. Like it's crazy to think about that at one point in time we were talking about RPGs potentially being dead, but I'm just glad that obviously that's not the case. And
mhm.
also, like you said, bring on RPG elements because there has to be a reason for you to play the game. People, not everyone wants to sit there and play Call of Duty multiplayer matches over and over and over again to try to get like to unlock all the skins with how many headshots and all this other challenges stuff. That does give people incentive that like to play multiplayer, but there's plenty of people that don't enjoy the Call of Duty multiplayer. Like Adam is like the perfect example of like zombies being so much fun for him has kept him playing Cold War so much longer than he would have ever played a Call of Duty game in the past because he's just not someone who's going to get on and grind for all the skins that you can get in multiplayer. But with all the replayability there is in zombies right now, he's been loving it. And I think that's very important to kind of see, like, if you really want people to enjoy your games, give them something to do inside the game that's not purely just like a grind thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can kind of grind away at zombies and not even really realize it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, totally, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You really did. So, no, definitely glad you added that. So, Mike, as I was saying before, let's head into our big topics for this week. And just in general, can we first say, well, I guess I take that back. I was going to say, thank God we're finally out of 2020. 2021's looking great. And then, the shitstorm happens yesterday in our nation's capital as U.S. citizens. And, before we I didn't want to touch on that really, but now that I'm kind of here, I want to, but not in like a way that, and obviously, like, if you're listening to this, I like to think that we're very, very, and if you've been listening to us from the beginning, I like to think that we're very honest. I like to be, my biggest thing has always been with everything I do, gaming related and whatnot, and the things I love is transparency. And I want to be completely transparent with everyone on this show. And Mike, by all means, correct me if I'm wrong or whatever, but I think from our conversations, we're on the same page and whatnot, but we will never diminish or tell people when we're speaking, really across the board, but specifically to our, native US listeners, never diminish the fact of, hey, it is your right to peacefully protest. And I've said that from the beginning when we're talking about earlier this year, when we were talking about...
Or last year, but...
Or yes. Last year, yeah, you get what I'm saying. 2020
it's basically all... This year has started off just like... I mean, it's just a continuation of 2020. So.
Shit don't change.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, we will never diminish the idea of peacefully protesting, because it is a right as a U.S. citizen, and really our country's nucleus, the formation of our country, the nucleus of that is based upon peacefully protesting. So I will never diminish that away, even if I don't agree with it, which clearly I don't agree with what happened yesterday. And I think I've been very clear, I mean, for 6 months now, and I'm, like I said, I'm being very transparent. When the civil unrest was happening against, George Floyd earlier in 2020. Since then, I've ended our show with, Black Lives Matter. And at first, I saw, and I see the analytics, and I don't look into it that much, but I saw the decrease in people. There was a small decrease in, people. And there's a reason why I keep saying it at the end of the show. Because it's fucking true, one. And two, I want to weed out the people that don't want to be, or that I want to weed out the people who shouldn't be in our community. Because I want this community to be not only people who are totally allowed to believe whatever they want, but there has to be a reason behind that, and it has to be justified, and it has to be a welcoming community. It needs to be a community that you are totally allowed to have different opinions than anybody else. And I encourage that. I encourage the ability to have, discourse around this stuff and whatnot, because it's important. If we don't, I think if we bottle up too much, nothing will ever get done, and more shit like that could happen. But hatefulness, bigotry, everything like that, like, I'm going to lay it out real clear. If you agree with what happened yesterday, not the idea of just peacefully protesting, because I wouldn't agree with the message they're sending, me personally, and I feel pretty safe saying, like, most people probably at this point are like, that's, we're at cultist levels of that. I don't agree with that, but if it was peacefully protested, if it wasn't, if it would have stayed within the lines of that, that's totally fine. Don't agree with the message, but totally fine, whatever. Yesterday wasn't peacefully protesting. It evolved past peacefully protesting. That was acts of domestic terrorism in some parts. There are multiple people dead now, specifically one woman who was shot in the neck and died, bled out. There's videos on the internet if you really want to go fucking see. I would not. But maybe a wake-up call for a lot of people, so maybe you should go watch it. But I want to just make everything clear. If you support what that evolved into yesterday and that kind of bullshit, we don't want you here. I don't want your listen. I don't want your view. I don't want your support financially, whatever. I don't. Like, I want people who are more who are willing to come across the aisle, who are willing to work together. I want people who do have different opinions, but aren't going to shout people down and just belittle people. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. By all means, I want you to chime in on this and just because I want to get it out of the way before we gotta go in and talk about our nerdy video game shit. Because to me, this is far more important than that. But
Yeah, I mean, for me, I am someone who is a history major, and I mean, for those of you out there that make fun of liberal arts degrees or whatever, you can laugh all you want, but someone who genuinely enjoys, I love history 1st and foremost, so that's the reason why I majored in it. Secondly, I potentially saw a future in law, and history majors out of all majors are like the third best testing, right behind philosophy and economics. So when you talk and that's for LSAT results. So basically for my future, the degree I chose I was dual majoring in history and econ when I first started. And then I got very sick, couldn't continue on with the econ major because I was going to fall behind. I was going to pick up an econ major, math minor. Long story short, now I was like maybe 3 classes away from a poli-sci minor because I started picking up poli-sci classes because I genuinely took one because it was an elective at my liberal arts college. But then, I realized that, like political science in my school where I graduated from isn't a study on Democrats and Republicans and libertarians and political affiliations and parties. It is legitimately the study of the history of politics, basically. How did America start? Why it started? Classical political thought, which, goes back to Greece and Rome and goes over those philosophers. And to me, I enjoy all of that a lot. And what we witnessed yesterday was, the beauty and the burden of being an American. The beauty comes from being able to gather and peacefully protest. And, we saw earlier, last year where peaceful protests were, there was violence being incited, and there's no political affiliation that can be had or made to excuse some of the violence that was caused by, the police actions during those protests.
I mean, just to put this in perspective for everybody outside the U.S., our Capitol building has not been breached during the Civil War, during World War I, World War II. In 1812, it was breached. It's the only time. That alone should say a lot, given our very rough history at times, with how we've had to defend liberty and defend our democracy, really. And to me, that's the biggest thing about this is
that wasn't an act of defending liberty or democracy.
No, that wasn't. And that's the point I'm trying to make. I like I said, we both agree that we will never knock against the right to peacefully protest. We may disagree with the what was going on, and I don't want to speak for Mike, on what he feels upon that part of it. By all means, on my end, I don't agree with the reasoning behind it yesterday. But them just peacefully protesting alone, if it was left at that, totally fine. Whatever. Don't agree with it. Whatever. But it didn't. It fucking went past that. It went way past that. It became acts of domestic terrorism, in my opinion. It was riots that led to then that.
If you are someone who were super angry about the protests that were happening over, George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, then you have to be angry about what happened yesterday, because you can't, say, oh, well, those other people were looting and rioting. Okay, so yeah, they went and they looted Targets and things of that nature, but Target has insurance; they can cover those losses. They didn't go storm a fucking Capitol building and put all of democracy at risk. Is basically what happened, because you have those type of actions that happen, and you give the government reason to not trust its people, to try to, pass more expansive measures to prevent things like that from happening yesterday. And I'm not going to be someone who's going to pretend like America's perfect. And have even said myself personally, like, sometimes maybe, just maybe, we need to get the attention of our representatives. And, maybe showing up on Capitol Hill might just be the way to do that. But the way that it was done yesterday, storming a Capitol building, the way that it was done, it's just, I don't think you can justify any of that behavior. And it, like I said at the beginning of my whole spiel, is it's the beauty and the burden of being an American.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of it is we can protest and do things like that at any time. But I've seen a lot of sentiment online that's like, basically, you know, the people that were protesting for Black Lives Matter movement were treated completely differently. And I don't even think you can really disagree or argue with that, because it's true. You know, those people are running into a line of policemen that are, you know, in a lot of the cases in a lot of the cities, they were straight up just inciting violence against those protesters. Whereas yesterday, you know, there's clips of those policemen actually letting these protesters in.
Yeah.
And it's the burden of all America to realize that this is what's happening. This is the real reality that we live in. And just like having slaves was a complete and total, you know, affront to saying, oh, well, all men are created equal. Well, really? Because you have slaves. Like, that's not really true, is it? And, you know, that's still true to this day. Like, that is a burden of being American, that you need to realize that when there are issues in our democratic republic, it's up to us to take matters into our own hands. But the way that it was done yesterday is setting a dangerous precedent for people to just try to railroad the entire country into, you know, from what it seemed like and what it has seemed like with most of the cases, like a rare amount of crazy fanatical people that have been causing issues pretty much all over the country at this point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And like I said, I didn't want to spend too long on it because I do want to, you know, obviously talk about good stuff. This is sometimes an escape for people, you know, I'm sure. Like a lot of podcasts and entertainment are, for me, escapes. But I just want to be very, very, very transparent about that if you agree with what that escalated to yesterday and the actions that were taken and a lot of that, we don't want you. Just plain and simple. I don't want hatred. I don't want anything like that. I want differing opinions. I want unique opinions. I want people to, you know, I want people to come to our community and our podcasts and whatnot and have unique conversations about different sides of arguments and different things like that. You know, and there's things that I agree and I'm very hard on agreeing with. And this is one of them where, you know, I just, if you agree that wasn't far enough, if that wasn't whatever, you know, yesterday, that you don't see what's wrong with that, we just don't want you in here, period. And that's a hard line, in my opinion. You know, I don't know. It just,
we don't have any reason to appease anyone. Like, we don't have any sponsors.
No, and that's the
affiliations.
That's the thing. Yeah, and that's the thing. Period. And even if, to be quite honest, even if we did,
I don't care.
I don't fucking care.
I'd rather lose it.
I don't fucking care, because let's put it this way: if there is a corporation or a business that is a sponsor, you know, who is sponsoring us or something like that, running ads on us, and they don't mind what happened yesterday or whatever, they don't have an issue with that, or they have an issue with us talking about that, I don't want to fucking do business with them. Period. Like, we'll find somebody else. Like, that's totally cool. But point being, what I'm saying is, this community is welcoming. This community is supposed to be a place that people can come, talk about video games, talk about the dope things that are going on in video games, have good conversations, talk about fucking Halo, talk about Mike, have, you know, Mike's basically like the Matthew McConaughey meme where he's like taking a huge drag of the cigarette, looking down, like him talking about video games and, you know, 343 like that. So, you know, that's supposed to be this environment, and we will always be welcoming to people, and we will always give people a chance, because I try to believe the best in people, but it's very hard to do that today. But I just want to make that very clear. If you support that, if you support any kind of bigotry, any kind of racism, any kind of stuff like that, get fucked. You're not welcome here. Period. Just don't, we're good. We're good. You know, hey, move on. Check out another show. We don't want the view. We're good. So, just want to make that very clear. Anyways, I didn't plan on talking about that long, but Mike, it is 2021 now. Now, that was the whole thing that fucking derailed that conversation. I didn't even think we were going to talk about that, but I'm glad we did. But It is finally 2021. We're out of fucking 2020. Let's get shit back on track. Let's have a good year. And more importantly, let's talk about some Xbox stuff. And let's talk about Xbox in 2021. And I think a good barometer for this is an article that I pulled up over on Eurogamer from Chris Tapsell. Like I said, always, links in the description. Go over there. I think Chris gives us a really good roadmap as to what, here we are in 2021. This is the outlook for Xbox. This is what's going on. This could be their proper launch year. So, as always, link in the description. Go over there, give Chris a click. It's a really good article. There's kind of a vague density to Xbox's year ahead. The Medium is out on January 28th, and then nothing else. Out of the whopping 21 console or timed exclusives that I can count, has an actual solid release date. This, of course, is largely a result of the pandemic. Microsoft's original plans for the Series X and S's launch, like everyone's, has been dramatically impacted, and so what we get is lots of games crammed into the broad window of 2021, and lots of uncertainty about when they'll actually arrive, or whether they'll even make it out this year at all. None of those have been more publicly affected than Halo Infinite. There is a lingering sense that this is a make or break for 343 Industries, which has done a decent job of imitating, quote, real Halo without ever actually feeling real. That sounds like a Mike Peapack quote. The studio has had a long time to focus on Infinite, announced at E3 2018 and in development since at least 2015, when Halo 5 launched. And so the wobbly reveal and subsequent departure of director Chris Lee has been troubling. The delay, on the other hand, is at least morally encouraging. Staff welfare was cited as a key reason as much as anything, and there's plenty of recent evidence to remind us that short-termism and crunch doesn't exactly pay. Reinforcements have also been called in the form of Bungie veteran Joe Staten and Pierre Hintz, credited by some as the savior of the Master Chief Collection after its own rocky launch. Staten since claimed to be, quote, stunned by the quality of the campaign. With little else in the way of blockbuster exclusives this year, and none since the console's launch either, the pressure is on. Away from Halo, and maybe Rare's Everwild, which is apparently out this year but remains largely a mystery, there's a distinctly AA feel to Xbox's lineup. Call it the Game Pass effect if you like, but Microsoft has clearly made a concerted effort to woo the middle tier of publishing, snapping up Crossfire X, Remedy's single-player addition to the game that's become uber popular in Asia, and colorful-looking The Gunk from the developer of SteamWorld. There's some enjoyably schlocky-looking horror on its way via the Medium, and euphemism simulator Scorn, while horror-adjacent immersive sim and all-around cult favorite Stalker finally gets a sequel from the same studio as the original, GSC Game World, albeit with most of the original staff long gone and a question mark over its 2021 release date. A more promising cult hit follow-up, at least personally speaking, is Warhammer 40k Darktide, a spiritual successor to the Vermintide games from developer Fat Shark, this time set in a grimdark future of the 40k universe. With Vermintide already channeling plenty of Left 4 Dead vibes, there's a real whiff of Xbox 360 nostalgia to this series, and what's been teased of Darkside so far looks excellent. Likewise, there's some genuine excitement around The Ascent from indie team Neon Giant and a stream of other ID at Xbox games on their way too, 13 by my count, at least 9 of which delayed from 2020. Several of those, like star-studded 12 Minutes, are from reliable art house publisher Annapurna Interactive, with others like Sable and Rezzed Darling Eco 1 coming as, quote, true indies that have been on our radar of the small game contingency for quite a while. All of it adds up to what you might call a, quote, promising year, then, if not exactly a spectacular one. But leaving at that would be a mistake. The pressure is only on Halo Infinite, for instance, if Xbox is still judging success solely in old ways, selling copies of games and living room boxes of which will naturally see more as the pandemic eases tensions on manufacture and supply. Increasingly, that doesn't seem to be the case. The elephant in the room is Game Pass, onto which every one of these console exclusives will be launching, straight off the bat, and alongside which, and bundled into the subscription, comes the streaming service xCloud. Microsoft's grand strategy with this generation is breadth, reaching as many screens as possible, as opposed to just the most hardcore with the biggest. 2021 may still be something of a foundational year as xCloud gradually ramps up to its full release in 5G, something of a forgotten game changer for the industry, gradually rolls out in the West. Only then will we get a true idea of Xbox's vision for gaming. And so 2021 is really the Xbox Series X's and S's launch year in earnest. Not only because it features all of the actual launch game, sorry, Tetris Effect connected, I do still love you, but because it's the year we get to see the really juicy stuff, the strategy. Speaking personally, I can say the Xbox Series X has been a pleasure to use so far, but more in the kind of illicit early access sense. Playing around with the Series X gives off some kind of feeling you get from waking up at the crack of dawn to run around an empty theme park before the crowds. It's been nice. The hope for 2021 is it'll evolve into the real deal. So I agree with a lot of that, saying, 2021 truly feels like this true launch of the Xbox Series family of systems. How even it can even be debatable for Sony and the PS5, really only having, 2 games at launch being these big exclusives for the most part, and really one on a mainstream level if you're talking about, Spider-Man Miles Morales, but where really just so much has been derailed due to the unforeseen circumstances of a fucking global pandemic. So, obviously we talked about Halo Infinite ad nauseum, and you're more than welcome to talk about that, Mike, if you want, and I'm sure I'll chime in on it too. But looking at this potential lineup of titles that outline Microsoft's 2021, what is most exciting for you personally, Mike? And what does this lineup need to do to help Microsoft have a much more favorable true first year on the market, and just kind of, set the, set the scene for what 2021 looks like on paper, quotes around all of that. And some of these games, I for sure feel safe saying they're not 2021, but they're at least not listed as anything but that. So let's run through it. The only one we actually have a hard date for is the Medium, and that's on January 28th. Following that, all of these are just 2021 question mark type of things. 12 minutes as Dusk Falls, Bright Memory Infinite, Crossfire X's single player campaign from Remedy, XO1, Examecha, Halo Infinite obviously, Scorn, State of Decay 3, The Ascent, The Gunk, Warhammer 40k Darktide, and then we get into these bigger exclusive titles that have been announced but no real title attached to them. Hellblade 2, Fable, Forza Motorsport, Forza, Everwild, Avowed, Stalker 2, and obviously Perfect Dark, which Perfect Dark definitely isn't coming out 2021. At least I can't see anyway it does. So, Mike, what about really looking forward now? Now that we're out of 2020, now that we're out of launch, now that we're out of, hey, here's the shitty hand that was dealt. We're potentially starting to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel for the pandemic, maybe with, the vaccine starting to be rolled out and whatnot. What needs to be done with these titles? What's most exciting to you personally? What does this lineup of titles need to do? And even looking in 2021, what do we need to just see from Xbox? Do we need to, hey, now that the Bethesda deal has gone through officially, I think it's Q2 or something like that, 2021, it'll be official, in terms of it's been paid for, done, everything's signed, yada, yada. Do we finally get to see some, marketing material from them? Hey, let's look at Starfield, stuff like that. Hey, let's see an early look at the Elder Scrolls 6, which probably wouldn't happen because they keep stuff so close to the belt at Bethesda. But, what does this lineup say, and what does Microsoft just really need to do starting in 2021 moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this lineup, I guess the first thing I can do for you is I'll give you the top 3 that I'm most excited about.
Okay.
And what I'll do is I will not include Halo Infinite, because obviously that's going to be my number one thing that I look forward to,
Mhm.
because that's supposed to be, a tentpole franchise for Microsoft and Xbox. But for me, I look at a game like um Perfect Dark. Obviously, we've talked about how that's probably not coming out this year, but I
Mhm.
will say that I'm super excited to see that game, because that's basically the game that everyone's kind of been like, well, this is what they've been getting all that talent for, so we'll see,
Mhm.
what they wind up doing with that. So, basically kind of removing those two, I have um the games that I have most on my list are um 12 minutes. And the reason why I'm very intrigued by this game is because it seems like something that, while it is a newer concept, because it's going to be on a 12-minute time loop, and you're going to have to create like, it seems like you're going to have to complete certain objectives to continue moving on further and further in your day, almost like the movie Groundhog Day, which is one of my favorites. Probably just because it's takes place in Punxsutawney. But um that game, with the big name talent they brought in to voice act, this is not the first time we've seen games bring in big time talent to voice act, and it won't be the last time. And I love the crossover from people that are big on the big screen to coming to gaming, namely Willem Dafoe. But I love what 12 minutes looks like. I love what Luis Antonio is doing at Annapurna Interactive, and I'm super excited for that single player game. Another game that I'm looking forward to is Fable, and I doubt that it comes out in 2021, but since I'm already not including Perfect Dark and Halo, I'm throwing Fable in one of my most anticipated games for Xbox, because they left off and kind of left me with a sour taste in my mouth, because Fable 3 was fine, but it felt like more of the same of Fable 2. And the main quest line causing you to age like 15 to 20 years kind of left you in this limbo where it's like, oh, I want to do stuff when my character's young, and they kind of take all that away from you when you complete the main quest line. So I'm really curious to see what they've been cooking up with this, because it seems like it is one of the games that, if you are looking to compete with Sony in first party exclusives, like, this is, the game that needs to compete with a lot of what Sony has to offer. So I'm looking forward to see what they do with Fable. And then also to just go out on it like a little bit of a stretch and throw something out there. I'm excited to see what The Medium does here, just coming up here in a few weeks, because I've been really into horror games recently, so I'm really excited to see what they have planned for that game, and what you're able to do in it is basically what I'm looking forward with that game. Now, as far as what Microsoft needs to do, obviously they have a slew of games that they have coming out, and what they need to do is they need to be patient with these developers, because COVID has been throwing stuff at them that they weren't anticipating. And I know I've been hard on the past on 343, namely because of their excuse of using COVID as a reason to delay when the game wasn't going to be ready anyway. But it's like a lot of these studios are genuinely being affected by this big time. So we'll see what they're able to cook up with all the challenge they've been handed. But Microsoft just needs to be patient. And I was complaining a lot about, like, oh, why are you even bothering with coming out with a new system when you're going to have like basically no games for it? But it seems like it might have given everybody a lot of time to get their consoles, and it's given them time to get the consoles circulated. So that's like the benefit I see to having like not a whole lot of games, but people have been getting the console, because it's still in demand, even though there's not as many games available for it. You know what I mean?
No, and definitely, obviously, like you were saying right off the top, is that you got to make this thing more available. You got to figure out ways. And I've even seen a few articles actually today kind of pop up saying that, Phil Spencer's reached out, with AMD and other, different portions of the manufacturing hub, that is needed, this conglomerate of people who are needed to, produce this thing. And he's saying, like, what can we do to get more out there? What can we do? Does it need to be a financial end? Is there need to be more commitment on our end to get this, get these things produced and out there and moving? Because there's clearly a demand. Whether, people will say, oh, well, the PS5 is blowing it out of the water right now. You can get neither of these consoles right now, period. They've sold, all of them have sold through. Now, granted, yes, it definitely seems like the PS5 has sold more consoles right now, but it doesn't mean that the Xbox is, still isn't popular. At least right now with Xbox, even if you don't have a Series X, you can play the games that are on there right now. You can go on, whether it's you're on your Xbox One, 1 or 1X right now, or 1S, you can do that. Hey, If you want, you can go on your computer right now, open up the Game Pass app, and play everything available, through Game Pass PC, at least that is. All of those games that are available as exclusives to Microsoft, you can play it right now. So, like, there at least is options, but I totally agree. They need to figure out a way. And granted, it all comes back to this is a lot of unforeseen circumstances. Like, granted, you could say in the U.S., oh, well, the U.S. wasn't, prepared because Trump let go of its, pandemic team and whatnot. And that is all very true. But, hopefully with now that there are at least a lot of preventative measures to help people get back to work and whatnot and be able to hopefully, knock on wood, produce this console at a much quicker clip. Let's get out there and do it type of thing. Hopefully this, does pan out and hopefully we can get people out there and get this thing, made. So that's obviously one of them. But, in terms of games I'm looking forward to and games that have me hyped, the medium I'm definitely interested in checking out just because it's so close. Two, it's been very much I'm a fan of The Evil Within. I'm a fan of Resident Evil. I'm a fan of Silent Hill. I'm a fan of that mind-bending psychological horror to a degree. And Resident Evil kind of strays away from that a little bit, but, into more zombie horror type of thing. But definitely Silent Hill, and definitely The Evil Within as somebody who loves The Evil Within. I am very much looking forward to the medium. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays both on PC and console on a pretty decent PC that I have. As well as my Series X, that with it being able to run just straight up two scenes at one time, rendering these two scenes at one time in completely different assets and whatnot, like, it's going to be very taxing on the system. I'm curious to see how this will be, I think, early on at least, a benchmark game for the system to see how this actually runs. PC, I'm not really worried about, but I'm curious to see how a home console that is a modular, kind of handles this thing. So that's definitely one. There's so many question marks around stuff. 12 minutes, obviously, that's another thing. A ton of these ID at Xbox titles that are coming out, specifically from Annapurna. Annapurna Interactive fucking crushes. So I'm super excited to really get my hands on anything from Annapurna, but specifically 12 minutes. I'm interested in the Crossfire X single player campaign just because it's from Remedy, and that studio has so much pedigree from Alan Wake to, the original Max Payne to recently Control. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes out of Crossfire X's single player campaign. Well, just for Remedy being attached to that, because there is a degree of, prestige and polish to that from a Remedy game. So I'm really excited about that. Obviously, Halo Infinite. Scorn looks just completely fucking disgusting and fucked up, and I'm all for that. So, and State of Decay is a series of games that a franchise of games that I've never dipped into, always has seemed like such a, hey, this is our jam type of thing from, games we play like 7 Days to Die, Left 4 Dead, World War Z even too, but much more we like 7 Days to Die, like, so, it's such a good game for you, Adam, and I to play, people who, do like the survival aspect of some of those games and crafting and whatnot. Like, I've always feel like that's such a, series that would be good for that. But I've never jumped into it. And so it's one of those, maybe this will be the first time I do get into it. But after that, it really gets into that huge question mark bracket type of thing. Like, who the hell knows when these games do come out? I don't think we will see. The only game that I really think we have a chance to see, well, two games. 3 potentially. Stalker 2 I think does come out this year, but it would be late this year, at least me personally, I think. But if we look at this list, the only game that I truly think is going to be a 2021 game, pretty nail on the head type of thing, is Hellblade. I think Hellblade 2 is really going to be, this is going to be that first big, outside of Halo obviously, but game that isn't Halo, this first newer acquired studio, not a homegrown studio from Microsoft. This is the first big exclusive coming out of them that is a next-gen title. It is designed with next-gen in mind. This is taking full advantage of the Xbox Series X, so I'm really curious to see how that pans out. I'm really excited because I love the first game, and fucking Ninja Theory is fucking fantastic in what they do with tackling mental health and whatnot. I'm really excited to see what comes from that game, but everything after that is just question mark. Like, maybe we'll see. Like, I think it's more we'll get updates with those games, and rightfully so, because like I keep talking about this episode, transparency in general was super important to me. So I want to know eventually what Fable is. Granted, it may be early in development, even though I think it's been in development for a couple years now at least. I want to see what this game looks like. There's rumors about it being an MMO, live service esque title. Who knows? I don't think so. I think that would stray too far from your actual fan base of that title because it still has such a connection to the Xbox legacy that we may see that drift a little apart. But at the same time, who knows? Anything is fucking possible, and they got to make money off these titles via Game Pass somehow outside of just, hey, here's the service or whatnot. So there's got to be something in there that keeps people wanting to get back in, especially making money off of this. There may only be the people who jump in every now and then to try a game out, but who knows? So obviously, a lot of these sales I still am excited for. Fable, Everwild, Avowed, definitely. I'm fucking ecstatic for Avowed because Obsidian's fucking awesome. And I need that Elder Scrolls fix that I don't think Bethesda is going to give us anytime soon, obviously. So, I'm ready for that first-person RPG, high fantasy experience that, I've been wanting from a new Elder Scrolls game, just haven't been able to get it. So I'm excited to get in and play that eventually, but I don't think that's like a 2022, 2023 maybe game. Hopefully I'm wrong. That'd be dope to play it in, a year from now, but
yeah, we might have COVID under control by the time that comes out. I don't know.
Let me ask you this, and I don't want to sit on this too long just because we could probably talk all day about this. And I obviously want to have a follow-up, almost an update episode, because we really spent a full episode on them in general, last year. Well, no, almost 2 years ago now. But one of the earlier episodes we did on Bethesda, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but since I want to go back and revisit that in a full episode eventually, but since we're talking the future and we're talking 2021, this deal's going to be done. We're going to have Bethesda as a Microsoft game studio, like a Xbox Game Studios in-house studio at that point, fully Microsoft owned. Do you think that's what we're waiting on, or that's what Bethesda's waiting on to move forward with? Hey, here is Starfield. Here's this game that we revealed. It's the next. And we're talking 2018 this game was revealed in, as well as the Elder Scrolls 6, which I'll get to in a second, but we haven't heard anything else about this. Do you think that's now, because I've heard a lot of things that obviously a deal this big, we're talking $1 billion deal, like, this has been in the works for quite some time, and I've heard it's been since 2018 around there that talks have been there, like where it's been building from that, but in terms of Microsoft acquiring Bethesda, do you think once we get this deal wrapped up, once Microsoft puts a bow on it, Bethesda is now officially a completely owned Microsoft studio. Do you think that's what Bethesda's waiting on to start promoting this product and this experience? Do you think 2021 is the year we get to see something from this game?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that could be something that, would make a good bit of sense, because basically something would have to make sense at some point, because nothing about this process has made sense with Starfield. They're too big of a studio to do like a shadow drop type of thing.
Oh yeah,
how some dev studios will just be basically release a trailer 6 months before release, where it's basically a done deal and they want to get the hype building. I think that when everything's all said and done, and when Microsoft officially has Bethesda, on their book, I would say that we would definitely see an update from Starfield. And I didn't even really kind of think about it until you just brought it up, but that would make a whole hell of a lot more sense than the process that has been going forward with Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6, because we haven't really seen a whole lot from Elder Scrolls 6, and we haven't seen anything from Starfield. And you would think that Starfield's way closer to being done than Elder Scrolls 6. But,
oh yeah.
We've seen basically the same amount of information about both. So yeah, I mean, they're probably waiting for that to finalize before releasing trailers, but I don't know why why wait? I don't know the reasoning behind that. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense marketing wise, because nothing is going to really change. You're still going to make the game, right? But I do think like that makes sense, and that could be why we haven't seen very much about it yet.
Mm-hmm. No, and yeah, that's kind of my thought process as well. That, you know, you would hope that's the case, and obviously, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this because we're getting long in the tooth. But you know, I would want to hope that's the case of where Bethesda is with its titles right now, because, and granted, you know, when you look back and you see, okay, we're talking about, you know, Bethesda Game Studios developed titles, like Bethesda proper, not a published title, is a Bethesda proper developed game. You know, you look at it, okay, we went, you know, just looking at Morrowind to Oblivion to Fallout 3 to Skyrim to then, you know, Fallout 5 or Fallout 4. You know, so the time between those, you're looking at, you know, from release, about what, 4 years? Well, really, now that they have dual teams working on these titles, at least internally, you would think at least 2 teams working on these, and maybe a third at this point, because Bethesda's so fucking huge, that you look at, okay, you know, they released Oblivion in, you know, 2006. Then they moved on to Fallout, which was 2 years later. Then they moved on to Skyrim, which was 3 years later. Then you moved on to Fallout 4, which was, 4 years later. So, you know, we're looking at about a 3 to 4 year cycle where we see a Bethesda game. Like, you would think, though, we're getting to 2021 now. 2018 was the last time we saw a Bethesda proper title in Fallout 76. You would think this is the year we probably see something, but they're always so, like, Todd Howard has always been very much on the end of, hey, I don't like to show anything until I know it's quote unquote ready to go. Like, until we're close and we know for sure. And I can respect that, given everything that's going on. Hey, we've seen, you know, Cyberpunk for how long now, and they keep pushing the game back. Hey, it's for sure coming this. Now we're bumping it. I can understand that, and I can understand wanting to have that, like, hey, we're just not wanting you to get your hopes up of getting this game at this time and this, you know, yada yada. I can understand and respect that, but at the same time, now they're going to be they're part of a publicly traded company, and they need to talk about these games. Period.
The low-hanging fruit that's present when you bring that up is like, Are you willing to tell me that Fallout 76 was ready?
No, and it wasn't.
You know what I mean? Like, so maybe because of that situation, like perhaps Todd Howard has even more reason to kind of like not necessarily withhold information about the game. Well, yeah, basically withhold information about the game because of how, you know, just how disastrous that release was for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just getting... No, I don't want to say, oh, it's getting to the point we need to see something, yada, yada, but like in a pissed off way. But it is that we need to at least start to see something. I mean, something. And I truly think a lot of their plans over the past 2 years have shifted because of them approaching this Microsoft deal. Because Microsoft, from what it sounds like, was the only place that they were going to take a deal from. They weren't going to be bought by anybody else. You know, from ZeniMax proper, I should say. It wasn't going to be bought by anybody else because they wanted to make sure they had this a long-term relationship with Microsoft. They see this for a reason. They could probably go anywhere. The Elder Scrolls and Fallout alone are 2 IP that are just fucking so big that, you know, anybody would be glad to take those on as first-party exclusive titles potentially. So, you know, I really do hope this is the year that we get to see that. And I think once this deal kind of fleshes its way out, that potentially opens the door for that. So, knock on wood. Mike, let's head into our second article here. And these next two are kind of quick, so I want to take as much time as possible to kind of talk about 2021, because that's the bigger deal. But survey asked players if they wish PS5 DualSense features were in the Series X controller. This comes from Jordan Ullman over on IGN, as always, link in the description. A survey sent to owners of next-gen Xbox consoles is querying whether users would appreciate the features of the PS5's DualSense in their Xbox Series X or S controller. As reported by TechRadar, the console experience survey asks owners whether they think the Xbox Series X, quote, feels next gen, and later asks whether they feel they are missing out in the peripherals department. Quote, I am aware of features on PlayStation controllers that I wish were on the controller that came with the console, the question reads. This is, of course, referring to the PS5's DualSense, which offers adaptive triggers for simulating resistance and provides precise haptic feedback, with the goal of increasing immersion in games. By comparison, the Xbox Series X controller wasn't too much of a jump from the last generation, despite the addition of features like a dedicated share button and textured triggers. Microsoft's interest in these questions would suggest that they're at least thinking about upgrading the next-gen controllers in the future to line up with Sony's offering in the current generation. While that line of thought doesn't necessarily promise changes in the future, Xbox has a recent history of adding well-received features on other console controllers to its own. The Xbox One controller adopted a 3.5mm jack partway through the last generation, for example. So, Mike, as somebody who owns both a PS5 and a Series X, I personally love both controllers. I know how much you love the 360 controller over the Xbox One controller, but still dig the controller overall. It's not a bad controller. And that's me personally. I love both controllers that the PS5 and the Series X offer for different reasons, but the DualSense's tech really did blow me away when I first got to use it. It's one of those, like, you don't know what you're missing until you've tried it kind of thing. And how really just subtle touches to how how you play these games via that controller really bolster just the whole experience at all. But Mike, let me ask you this. In the grand scheme of things, is this really something that we see Microsoft really truly committing to when, as what we've already talked about, games, exclusives, content for this console in general are one of the biggest factors they're facing currently, one of the biggest hurdles they're facing currently. Is this something, is this a hill that they should kind of be dying on right now, or really should the focus just, can they have multiple eggs in the basket, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, when you look at peripherals, that's something that that was something that kind of pushed me towards Xbox, even with the PS3 and PS4. Like, I wouldn't even consider buying a PlayStation because I didn't like the controller. Once I got, once they kind of moved past the Duke and moved to the S-Type, and then you had a smaller controller that was a lot more comfortable for everyone, you moved then into the Xbox 360 controller. And I think, besides some of the slow turn stuff with the wired controllers, particularly because when you played Halo tournaments, you had to have wired controllers. So we played with wired controllers, and you got slow turn after about 4 or 5 months of hardcore use. And some people wouldn't even notice it, but Halo players, you constantly were just buying new controllers. And that kind of stuff sucks, but the overall comfort and use of the controller made up for the downfalls, I guess you could say. But you hear about them still having removable batteries because of a deal with Energizer. That's something that's a lot more concerning to me than like features on the controller, right? Having that deal still in the well there that you have to uphold yourself to is tough. And I hope that going forward they do make changes to the controller. But for me, it's not something that, like, I don't think it's going to be something that would force me to go with an Xbox or a PlayStation, but it is nice of them to at least ask, like, hey, obviously PlayStation's very successful. We know, we can see that, we understand that, but at the same time, like, we're proud of what we are going with, and would it help you guys if we implemented that? So I do like that personally, though.
No, and I think there is bandwidth to, how many things they could tackle, going right now. I mean, we're at the beginning of a new generation. It is it's similar to any kind of art you put out there. I mean, hell, our podcast, you put out there and you get feedback and you get people saying, hey, just a heads up, I would suggest doing this, or hey, I really like the show, maybe change some of this. You're trying to attack it this way. Why don't you do it this way? It may streamline the show, yada, yada. And sometimes you're so close to, or so tied in that echo chamber that you don't really see the bigger picture. You're so close to something you don't really get to see it all, that you need somebody like that who is outside of that echo chamber to kind of show you, like, hey, no, we're really enjoying this. We would love to see this in your product or something like that. So, and Microsoft's such a big corporation in general that, they have so many entities within just their gaming division alone that, this is something that could easily be, implemented over time. I'm sure. And I'm sure there were probably thoughts of it already or talk of it already before this console even launched during the design process. And I'm sure they also said, well, you know what? We have a premium product out there right now in terms of controller with the Series, the Xbox Series Elite or whatever it is, the Xbox Elite controller. Sorry. And we have that. We have 2 variations of that. You can go out there and get that if you want. Why don't we save some money by offering a more standard experience with controller? But we make sure that we're the most powerful console on the market. We make sure that we put, outside of peripherals, we put that into the actual output experience that you're going to get from this box. That this is the box you want to game on. And cool, you can, if you want a premium product from us from via a controller, sure. There's the Series 2 Elite controller that we have. You can use the older one. They're both backwards compatible, forwards compatible, yada yada. You can take it with you to the new system. And I'm sure they're going to do a third Elite controller that probably will fucking have all this. And they're going to charge you $150 for it, and people will pay for it. No sour grapes. I mean, if it's that dope, I would even think about it, if it's a long-term, purchase that you're going to make. But point being that I'm sure they were more focused about, hey, we want to make sure the actual physical main portion of this product we're offering is the absolute best it can still be. But it wouldn't also shock me if when they do a redesign of this console, oh yeah, they updated the controller and they added all this stuff and the new controller has haptic feedback or something like that. So I think they have that bandwidth to do that. I think they have the bandwidth to focus on hardware, focus on, content that's coming to the console and, software and whatnot. And I think they have the experience that they could easily implement that down the road if they really wanted to. So, Mike, let's head into our last news article for this week before we wrap it up here. Nintendo, this is kind of a weird one. We're talking Nintendo a little bit. Once laughed Xbox execs out of the room over a Microsoft acquisition offer. We're talking Microsoft wanting to acquire Nintendo. So this comes from Megan Farkaminesh over on The Verge, as always, link in the description. Microsoft's Xbox consoles are considered a pillar of the industry, part of a trifecta that make up modern gaming. The first Xbox launched in 2001. The Xbox Series X and S arrived just last year. Today, Xbox is a powerhouse, yet it wasn't always so. Bloomberg's Diana Bass published an oral history on the creation of Microsoft's Xbox that recounts the console's conception from the executive retreat through the release date, with snags like a failed bid at Nintendo detailed along the way, which I highly, highly recommend going over to Bloomberg, checking that article out. It's huge. It's a really, really, really cool deep dive into really the backstory of Xbox and the inception of Xbox. So definitely go over there and check that out as well. Anyways, moving on. The original Xbox was known as Midway, or Coffin Box to some, according to Xbox technology officer Seamus Blackley, quote, because they were worried that it would fail and end their careers at Microsoft. As part of an effort to lock in exclusive games, Microsoft tried to acquire companies like Electronic Arts, Midway, and Square. Kevin Backus, director of third-party relations, says that president and later Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer also made the team meet with Nintendo. Their pitch revolved around the technical powers of the Xbox. It did not go as planned. Quote, they just laughed their asses off, Backus told Bloomberg. Like, imagine an hour of somebody just laughing at you. That was kind of how the meeting went. Bloomberg's story goes on to explore the console's actual achievements, including its successful bid for Halo creator Bungie. The full piece is well worth a read, especially for the anecdote about an unnamed Konami executive. As for Nintendo, chairman of Nintendo Howard Lincoln told the publication that the company, quote, does not talk about confidential discussions with other companies. In any event, nothing came from those discussions. So, like I said, I very much encourage everyone to check out Dina's write-up, over on Bloomberg, as it's very, very fascinating to see some of these stories detailed for the first time about Microsoft's real first foray into the console home space. But really now, in a roundabout way, when you think about Nintendo and whatnot, do you think Xbox, Mike, has become more like Nintendo as the years have gone on, with really now how they're approaching games in a much similar way to Nintendo, in a we don't care what you're doing. We're going to do things our way and measure success off of that, like Nintendo does. Yeah, we don't really care about power or whatever. We're more worried about our software that we put out, and we know that they're the only place that they can get these games, and they're going to come to us, and we're cool with that. Just like Microsoft is like, hey, we're not really worried about how many people buy our console. It's that they're playing in our ecosystem, and we offer we offer every avenue to get into our ecosystem, and cool, people will subscribe to us, they'll come play our games, and cool. We're not worried about selling 150 million of these consoles. We'd love to, but if it happens, it happens. We're worried about 150 million subscribers type of thing. So, do you think, having that mentality, is that, something that we really see kind of becoming like, Xbox becoming more and more like Nintendo, just living in their own ecosystem? And really, if so, do you think that it has the potential to pay off for Microsoft like Nintendo? Maybe not in the same, astronomical Mario is this just pop culture icon, but in a sense that, they're completely stable doing their own thing now and for the foreseeable future as long as they want to go.
We, hold. I mean, I think everyone kind of holds Nintendo to this pillar of greatness because our parents, like, for the longest time, I remember when I was playing Xbox or Xbox 360, they still called it a Nintendo. Like the
Yeah.
older generation just called every console a Nintendo. Like, hey, do you need games for that Nintendo? And you're like, no, it's a Sega, Dad. And they're like, oh, Nintendo, okay. And like, I guess there's a Super Nintendo, but no, I have a Sega. Like, I need Sega games. Oh, okay, I'll get you more Nintendo games. It's like, all right, well, at least you're trying, right? And whenever you become something that big, and there's other things in the world that people call it a single entity. Something that comes to mind is like, if anyone out there likes hockey, people call the machine that drives over the ice and basically dumps water on it and cleans the ice, gets the old ice off, like gets the snow off and drops water on it to refreeze to give a smooth playing surface. Everyone just calls that a Zamboni, no matter what. But people don't understand. People don't actually know that when you call that a Zamboni, that is the brand that makes one machine. That's one brand that makes the machine. Like, that's a Zamboni, but it's actually, I don't even know what you would technically actually call that machine. But long story short, they just became this household name that just describes any gaming console. It's just a Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And Microsoft is never going to reach that level. Maybe never is a harsh term, but you think about Nintendo's success, they're building an entire theme park in Universal Studios Japan for it. That's a big deal. And Microsoft has finally seemed to have gotten themselves out of this console race with Sony that they were just never going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Because even when PS3 was the console that Sony had and it was more expensive than the Xbox, and Xbox had much better exclusives, there were still the Sony idiots that were just buying Sonys and were like, I'm never getting an Xbox.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I guess, whatever. You know what I mean? But like, there are those people with Sony that, like, if Sony released an awful console and had no games, people are still going to buy Sony for whatever reason. And like, that's fine. You can have brand affinity all you want. But I think it was the best thing that for Microsoft to do to just switch focus and just say, you know what? Forget that. Let's just go Nintendo's route. And Nintendo, I'm going to say this as someone who does enjoy Nintendo games. I might not be a Nintendo fanatic like you or Marsh or other people, but they release inferior products. They always have released inferior products.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the N64 is the last console that comes to mind that like was okay, but then it got superseded by the Sony that used discs like a year later.
Mm-hmm.
And the original PlayStation was a much better console.
And really, I mean, even then, the Nintendo 64 was limited. It was limited by its, the way that it played its games via cartridge. Cartridges were you were able to cram so much into a disc, but only a limited amount of space in a cartridge, yet the cartridge would load super fast compared to a disc. But the horsepower that the system had and what it was able to actually give really kind of backed itself into a corner. So even then, it was like, oh man, like, Nintendo has never, ever been about power. They've never been. I mean, even though you look back at the GameCube was just behind really the Xbox in terms of power. Like the PlayStation 2 was like low on the, like, it wasn't as much of a jump as the other two, but was still able to do, so successfully well because of its price and, the success of the PlayStation and the amount of games it was able to come to it, yada yada. But I digress. But point being, definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, so Nintendo has never really released a console that's like since SNES that has been, I guess, competitive in a hardware standpoint. Like, they've always released inferior consoles. And whether you want to admit it or not, the Switch is an inferior console to the other ones. But again, it's not a home console. It's a mobile/home console. It's weird. And Nintendo has always done this thing where, like, the Wii, they released the Wii. Like, think about that. Like, the GameCube, they tried to compete, was never
Yeah.
going to happen. GameCube inferior. So they released the Wii. And it's just so different. And that's what Nintendo does, is they just release stuff that is so different. And Microsoft is finally starting to, like, get themselves out of this rat race so that they were never going to win against Sony.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the only way they can kind of become a relevant name. Well, not that they're not relevant, but, like, become a household, like, everyone's going to like Microsoft. Like, everyone likes Nintendo. Like, I don't care who you talk to. Everyone likes Mario. Everyone likes Zelda. You can't really hate those games.
Yeah.
And Microsoft is trying to get themselves to be in that conversation. And I think, what they've done, we've talked about it at length, so I won't go on much longer, but what they've done with their games as a service, what they've done with Game Pass Ultimate, being able to play Xbox games on PC, they're heading that direction. They're making anyone be able to play their exclusives, which is a huge deal, because now you don't have to spend the $500 on the console to play their exclusives if you don't want to. And this way, people are just investing in the Game Pass Ultimate. And then, you know what? People might buy your consoles eventually because, oh man, all these games are so good. I wonder, I want to be able to play it on my TV, not on my 24-inch monitor in my gaming chair. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, like, I totally agree, where it's the fact that, like, you look at them compared to, this route that, and it also comes down to, I guess I should say, it comes down to, it takes a while to get into that route. Like, Nintendo is known as, this just conglomerate of, and this just, when you think of the Mount Rushmore of gaming, they're on there, and hell, they may even take up three of the 5 spots or whatever you want to put up there, 4 or 5 spots, that you could fit on an actual mountain type of thing. So, like, when you think about that, it's for the sole fact of, like, it wasn't an overnight thing. It took a while to get there. It took a while to get to that point, but also it took a while for them to finally figure out, okay, sure, we could be always, worried about, how many are we going to sell? What are we going to do with this? We need to keep up with the Joneses with our tech and whatnot like that. But at the end of the day, they saw why people were playing their games. And it was because they were offering a level of polish and quality that nobody really comes that close to ever. So, taking that thought process, at least applying it to Microsoft, and you see that Venn diagram of things that kind of overlap with their process and what they're doing. And yeah, Microsoft is obviously, and when I'm talking about Nintendo, I'm not talking about the 100-year-old, toy and card maker. I'm talking about the video game branch of it, what it's known for today in a modern sense. But, it's more so when you look at that and you see that Venn diagram of how they overlap with their approach to gaming, where, hey, they're more worried about what fits best for them, what fits best for their business model. And instead of, hey, we got to make sure we have X, Y, and Z out there. If Microsoft, if they're worried about tech and they're worried about, hey, we want to be the most accessible, for what we do, in terms of the games we put out there on the software end. But hey, we also want to have one of the most powerful consoles out there. But you know what? If you don't want to buy that, cool. You can get in any other way. We'll make it super easy for you to get into our ecosystem. They're more worried about convenience, and that convenience is starting to become the polish of that Nintendo has, where they're doing their thing and they're succeeding at it. It may not be, like we talked about before. Sony fucking kicked their teeth in this past generation with how many PS4s and systems they sold and how many people they got into their ecosystem. But that doesn't mean that the Xbox brand and Microsoft weren't successful last generation. It was just Sony had this incredible generation. So how do you take what you learn from that and move it into there? And it becomes convenience. So many people were buying PlayStation 4. So many, like, that ecosystem blossomed that, okay, how can we just get people in the door with us and expanding from there? But they're doing it in a way that, hey, we're doing it our way, even if that means, hey, we got to take a hit on money. Hey, we got to really form the methodology of how people play games right now in the modern sense. Cool, they'll take that route. And they haven't really, faltered from that in their way of seeing it, where we're going to judge it off of our own metrics of success. And granted, like Nintendo, they're a company that just is Scrooge McDuck rich. That it's like, cool, if it fucking fails, guess what? Yeah, it's a big portion of it, but Microsoft isn't going away. They'll still be a company. Like, so it's just a small portion of their actual overall company. But in general, it's just it's fascinating to see them evolve, and even, well, evolve over time, but also really keeping to really their messaging long term, how they're going to do it. And I'm curious to see even longer what it's going to look like in 5 years. Would they have stayed with that long term? Have they gone this direction? Have they adapted now that, hey, we have a huge player base again within Xbox, comparatively speaking to last generation? Are they starting to be a little stricter? Are they starting to do decisions that make more money, type of thing? We'll see. I'm really curious about it. It's exciting, if anything. So, Mike, let's head into party chat before we wrap up the episode this week. If you're new to the show, this is where we propose one question at the end of each week that we want to discuss. Could be as simple as, what's your favorite story beat in the game, or what you've been playing during quarantine, type of thing, over the holidays, what have you. Or it could be a little more in depth as to like why the negative stigma around gaming still exists. And after answering the question ourselves, we'll kick it over to you to tweet your responses to the questions over on our Twitter at GPGC Podcast, or email us, and we'll read some of the responses the following week. Last week's question: what is one thing you want to see come out of the games industry in 2021? Could be a specific game, but also could be something else, such as the rebirth of a genre, a development practice, communication, etc. And Phil89473 tweeted us saying, continued transparency with game development to its consumers. Kind of seems like the topic today. So, Phil, nail on the head, on my opinion. Anyways, this week's question, Mike: what goals in gaming do you have this year? Kind of tying it back, like I said. This could be like a series you want to play through for the first time, like me. Could be getting X rank in a game, etc., etc. What are some of your goals in gaming this year for 2021?
I guess my goals in gaming are going to be, there's going to be a few different ones. I think my goal in gaming would be to finally, when Oblivion gets released for Elder Scrolls Online, finally give that its fair chance and see, what that's like. Actually playing it for a long time, because I invested a lot of money into it before and just never played it. Another goal that I would have is to have a high placement in a Halo tournament, and hopefully, I know LAN tournaments are probably a long way away, but if they weren't, I would like to place technically in professional bracket at a LAN tournament, if there are LAN tournaments for like Halo 3, within the next year before Infinite. And even if Infinite comes out, I'll be pretty old by the fall to like learn a new game and put all that time into it. But I would like to place pro at a tournament, and then also, I guess in Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, I'd like to get to 1500 ELO 1v1 rank is probably my goals this year for gaming.
See, I'm kind of similar. Like I said, I'd already talked about Yakuza. That's kind of one of mine to get into at least. And at least more or less see if I like the series that much. But one of them was, well, two-pronged. One is I would like to get out of silver in CSGO. Like, I'd like to try to make that a reality this year and play more CSGO, get back into CSGO playing it. But also, two, I want to learn how to play League. I want to learn how to play League of Legends. Like, actually commit to learning how to play just so I have another game in my arsenal to play. I've always wanted to, even though I've never been the biggest MOBA person, but I think that's just because lack of exposure. Long term, at least. Long term is as in more than just an hour here and there type of thing. I actually want to sit down, learn about the game, because usually that's when I find myself really enjoying more competitive titles like that. Like when I actually sit down, learn the current meta, learn, different strategies, learn tactical advantages, things like that. Like learn to actually play these experiences in a competitive fashion is usually when I want to just completely engorge in them. So that's one of those games I at least want to give a full fair shake with and actually sit down and try to invest some time into it. But we shall see. Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the interwebs? Talk about everything we talked about, whether it's the outlook for Microsoft and Xbox in 2021 and what that looks like. Could be the whole thing with Nintendo and Xbox, the history of Xbox, some may say. Where can people find you on the interwebs to talk about all the nerdy stuff we talked about today?
You can find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, but the second O is an X. Or you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travlis, on most internet platforms, including at Travlis_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_. And you could also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travlis_. Same as Twitter. And if you want to play some video games with me over on Xbox Live, you can do so with just regular old Travlis. That's TRAVLESS, no underscore. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all of that jazz I tell you every week, wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. With that being said, Mike, that's going to do it for our episode this week. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to the doctors, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.